and you're listening to the All Things Business Law podcast, the most important part of your day, brought to you by your hosts, Robert Shipp, Jacob Whitehead, Tanner Foltzer, and Jonathan Barrett. It's November 13th, 2017, broadcasting from Georgia Highlands College. Here we go.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. As you already know, we're talking about obstruction of justice. Now, if you look the definition up on the internet, you'll probably get something similar to what I'm about to say, which is to commit any act that is intended to interfere with the administration of justice. Now, in layman's terms, that's simply hindering the discovery or even like stopping the punishment of a crime. You could think of an example as being like bribery or even murder.
Do you go to jail for that, or is it just a fine?
What are some of the penalties?
All right, so if we look in-depth into it, let's take bribery. I say it has two ends of it. You have a higher end and a lower end. The higher end would be like, let's say you bribed a Supreme Court official, someone serious inside the government, and you'd probably get a serious fine, maybe even a little bit of jail time for that. On the lower end, if it's a small crime, something that's not even, that big of a deal, you'd get probably just a fine, just maybe even a smaller fine. If you take murder, for example, you'd be in jail for several years. Obstruction of justice can go up to 10 years,
Well, something you usually want to put an obstruction of justice outside of the courtroom, actually, you can get in trouble with obstruction of justice with banks and falsifying information on resumes, such as changing your income to something you don't make. And this can actually hold a penalty of maximum of 2 years in jail or actually a fine of about $5,000. So pretty big spectacle.
On that note of falsifying information, another illegal activity is willfully providing a false statement to the federal agencies. So lying to the FBI, lying to the CIA, bribing police officers, lying to judges or bribing judges to change the outcome of a case, perjury.
Now, if you get, pulled over and you lie to a police officer, is that obstruction of justice?
On paper it is. I'm not sure if they would rule that. Might
Yeah,
just get classified as a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Might change based off the situation.
Yeah, I'm not...
if we look at obstruction of justice, for example, you can just take that. Basically, it's because of its intent that makes it obstruction. You can't just walk by and move a piece of evidence without knowing you did it.
Right.
Or they can't file you for obstruction of justice knowing that. So under anything with intent, they can file a lot of things for obstruction of justice, and it'd be lawful because of that, because of the intent.
Which involves some gray area because, proving intent's a very tricky subject.
Okay. All right, so not to get too political or anything here, but of course in the news lately has been the Donald Trump and James Comey thing. If not familiar, basically President Trump fired James Comey. I believe Donald Trump was under investigation at the time. James Comey was the head of the FBI, so it doesn't look good because it just kind of overlaps there with James Comey being in the FBI and the investigation. It doesn't look good. I don't know that there's an issue there. He's the president. He's got the right to do that, right?
Didn't Trump ask for Comey's loyalty?
Yeah. I think Trump did ask for his loyalty.
And then you go and you fire the guy.
Just kind of doesn't make much sense.
Contradicts itself.
I don't know. It doesn't look good, I guess. I don't know if it's a problem.
You think Trump was covering it up?
Looks skeptical. You can't really prove anything.
I don't know. So, of course, another big case is the O.J. Simpson thing.
Everybody knows about O.J.
Yeah. That whole evidence gathering process was basically obstruction of justice, in my opinion. You take the body of his wife, and you're supposed to handle these bodies with care. These people have procedures they do to make sure none of the evidence can get contaminated, really. And they drug the body, and because the blood and all the other evidence that's on the floor, whatever they're trying to gather, because OJ lives in the house, they just cross-contaminate. So you're basically mixing evidence, and now all the evidence is unreliable.
Yeah, another thing they did to screw up on that case was the glove that they found in the backyard that they believed to be probably one of the biggest pieces of evidence was actually they froze it, unfreeze it, and it's leather. Whoa. It stretches, grows, and when you freeze it, it shrinks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows to put on the glove.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty big. It's pretty clever, but not.
You must have quit.
Yeah, because OJ tried it on and it didn't fit, so you can't say that's part of his glove.
Another case that is very famous on the charges as they pertain to obstruction of justice is the Watergate scandal. In the early 70s, it was found that Nixon hired burglars to break into the Democratic National Committee's headquarters in Washington D.C. and tap their phones and steal their documents so that he could get a leg up on the competition for the re-election process.
Wow. Wow. And I thought the big, issue there was that they used the CIA to basically work against the FBI there. I thought that was kind of the big obstruction part there, which doesn't look good.
Yeah, it was that which showed an abuse of presidential power, and also he gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to the burglars, bribed them to keep their mouths shut about what they had just done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so our new segment now, it's called Obstruction an Obstruction of Justice case or Family Guy episode. We will lay out the hacks of a case, and we'll decide if it is from a Family Guy episode or if it's a real obstruction of justice case. Here we go. So an abusive boyfriend is murdered by a group of men. The men write a fake suicide note, and they bury the car in the woods. Is this a real obstruction of justice case or a Family Guy episode?
I mean, I could see it being real because it would be a crime of passion, but
Yeah?
Sounds like it could be realistic. I mean, group of teenagers doing something like that.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like something that could possibly happen.
I mean, I just feel like for me though, like I'm pretty like I keep up with the news a lot, and like you would hear something, especially with teenagers, the young age. I feel like that'd been on the news, I kept it on the news probably the past 6 years or so. So I mean, unless it's like just not recent, but I feel like that's something would be something on the news, especially suicide. So
That was actually a Family Guy episode.
Not surprising.
point for me.
That was a Family Guy episode.
I got a point.
All right. So next case we have here is the scenario is a baseball player is accused of obstructing justice by giving a rambling answer to a grand jury. When asked about receiving drugs by syringe, the man stated, "I became a celebrity child with a famous father." Is this an example of obstruction of justice? Was this actually found in an episode of Family Guy?
I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty legit, I guess.
Definitely seems realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I guess I could kind of see Peter from Family Guy saying that maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we just take steroids in the baseball,
It became a big deal the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, 1980s, that's when because they weren't investigating them for that, really.
Mhm.
You see these athletes just come back jacked, and, they're
Popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you take the most recent one would be probably Alex Rodriguez, or a big name one, Alex Rodriguez, and even bigger than that a few years back was Barry Bonds. I mean, that basically ruined his whole credibility. He was a Hall of Fame guy, about to get into the Hall of Fame, and, it caused a lot of problems for that.
Well, actually, it is Barry Bonds. His court case a little while ago, that actually is where he got caught,
2 points for
killing his tendency. Killed his reputation.
2 points for me. You guys are losing.
the third case we have is on Family Guy or obstruction of justice is a high-level government official is on trial for being involved in leaking the name of a CIA officer to reporters. Is this a real obstruction of justice case or a Family Guy episode?
That sounds pretty legit.
I mean, that could be a serious crime. You're leaking, CIA.
Yeah.
That's personal, private.
Withholding, that's for information you gotta keep private, but
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a real case.
I'm going real too.
Real.
It is a real case. It's the case involving Lewis Libby. He was the chief of staff to former Vice President Dick Cheney. Got convicted of perjury, obstruction of justice, and making false statements.
Wow.
Alrighty, so our final one here is we got a man is suspected of being in possession of underage pornography by police. So this man decides to take the laptop out of the ocean via boat and deposit it into the ocean to evade further investigation. So is this a real obstruction of justice case or a Family Guy episode?
That seems a little,
Fishy.
hard to be a
Fishy.
Family Guy episode. Oh, man. That seems a little too dark to be a Family Guy episode. I don't know.
Also, usually people don't go to that
That
big of an
way.
extreme to hide something like pornography.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll say it's a real case. I don't know.
Say it's real.
I'm gonna go Family Guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a Family Guy episode.
Yeah.
And to conclude our podcast today, I'm just going to hit some of the points we went over. So for obstruction of justice, I mean, we got the statements for banks, such as lying on resumes for loans. You got your lying to a federal agency, lying to cops, judges, and anybody working for the government. And we also went over some real-life cases involving obstruction of justice, such as the Trump case, OJ's case, and also the Watergate scandal for Nixon. And that concludes our podcast today. Check in next time.
And that will conclude this episode of the All Things Business Law Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. It is the most important part of your day. We will see you next time.